This is the Bleav in Pro Wrestling podcast. Here's Rick Ucchino and SP3 on the Bleav Podcast Network.
Oh, yes. It is Monday, and we are back again. This is becoming a regular thing. Like usually we drop the podcast 7 a.m. on a Monday, but we've been having so much fun talking with you all here on Monday afternoon. We decided to just keep it going for a little bit. See how much we can grow this. We appreciate you guys joining us here this afternoon. Monday, May the 2nd. It's May already. I feel like I was just in Dallas last week for WrestleMania. That's been 4 weeks ago. You wouldn't know it by, how SmackDown's been booked, but that was 4 weeks ago. We're going to talk about SmackDown, specifically the booking, as WWE has, for my money, inexplicably changed the biggest match they had on the entire card that everybody was invested in, intrigued in the most anyway. They decided to go, nah, we don't need to have this match after all. Of course, I'm talking about the big tag team unification match. We will talk about that. Unfortunately, Friday was not a good day for several people in NXT. About 10 people find themselves now out of a job. And according to Dave Meltzer, the Wrestling Observer, more are on the way. So that is not a very good thing. Also, last week, if you missed it, an incredible interview done by Chris Van Vliet, who is one of the GOATs as far as interviews are concerned, with Athena, and also formerly known as Ember Moon. And she had some very, very concerning things to say, SP3. So we're going to dive into that. But we're going to have a little bit of fun because apparently there is a new member of the Bullet Club. And I'm not just talking about Juice Robinson either. SP3, how you doing today, this Monday?
I'm doing fantastic. Fantastic today. It's a great weekend for my new affiliate. I am no longer just affiliated with True Hill Heat, Bleav in Pro Wrestling Podcast, Wrestle Talk, Redacted. I am also affiliated with the biggest stable in professional wrestling, but we'll get to that. But hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for me because I'm in the UK and it's about 7:18 p.m. right now.
Man, that's actually sounds amazing because I really just honestly, I just want to get some sleep. I honestly want Raw to be dude, my weekend was absolutely freaking insane because I decided my 34-year-old, overweight ass that I could disassemble an entire deck by myself this weekend. Not only did I not get it done, but I hurt from everywhere, head to toe. I'm sunburnt. My skin is hot. It is not good. It is not a good look. I hope everybody is having a much better Monday than I am right now, but I am soldiering through. I am powering through to talk about everything that's going on between Friday and now and get you guys set up for Monday Night Raw. We say hi to Queen. We say hi to Carney Joseph. We say hi to Joshua. We say hi to ALW and Noob. We appreciate you guys joining us here today as our audience continues to grow. Thank you so much. Before we dive into everything real quick, stick with us here because we have to thank our partners over at BetOnline, the continued #1 source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA playoffs. What a matchup last night between Boston and Milwaukee. Also, don't forget fights and even next season's futures. And of course, MLB is going on everywhere but Cincinnati right now. So who are you picking to win the World Series? BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Got more on Vegas in just a moment, plus poker games. It is super easy to get started, so head on over to the website today. Use your mobile device and use our promo code Bleav. That is BLEAV to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online where the game starts. And SP3, I have a very special announcement that I haven't even told you about yet. Are you ready? As we all know, Money in the Bank is coming up in Las Vegas later on this summer. And here at Bleav in Pro Wrestling, we will be giving away two tickets to Money in the Bank in Las Vegas. This does not count travel or hotel. You got to get you to Vegas. Get you to Vegas. We will get you in the building. If you haven't been to Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, It is a beautiful venue. I was there last summer for SummerSlam, but we're going to be giving away 2 tickets. More on that coming up. Still figuring out how we're going to do everything. But I'll tell you this much. If you're already subscribed to Bleav in Pro Wrestling, if you already follow myself and SP3 on Twitter, you're already registered. You're done. You're done. So spread the word. Well, except for one minor thing. Keep an eye on my Twitter. Everything will be released tomorrow, but we are giving away 2 tickets to Money in the Bank this summer. Thank you to WWE. Really, really appreciate them for that. Now, that said, SP3, let's dive into this, because I think we spent a lot of time talking about whether or not WWE should unify the tag team championships and focusing a lot and giving WWE praise for really focusing more on their tag team division and putting it into the spotlight, led by Randy Orton and RK Bro and the Usos, obviously. And there was genuine intrigue in this title unification match. And then all of a sudden, WWE, in one fell swoop on a Friday on a pre-recorded show, decided to just choose violence. Like, they just said, nah, forget all that. Forget all that goodwill we built up. Screw our tag team division, because we got to get Roman Reigns on this damn card. So instead of giving us 2 separate matches that we could look forward to, they decided that the best course of action was to just get rid of the title unification and give us a generic 6-man tag team match that we could see on a go-home episode of SmackDown. They decided that that was the best course of action. Your reaction?
I'm so not surprised. You, ladies and gentlemen, you need to understand. Me and Rick, we do take some time to prep for these shows, and I Bleav it was last Monday he wanted the top news story to be about the title unification, or 2 weeks ago now. The title unification and how that might be a sign they're doing the brand split. And I told Rick, I was like, no, because this is a simple answer. No, it's not going to be a brand split. And I feel like WWE, because I wear my Vince hat, and we're going to start selling these Vince hats so other people
we need to work on that. Yes.
So other people can think like me and realize where the WWE is going. The WWE, they have no intentions of doing a brand split. They have no intentions of unifying the women's tag team titles or the mid-card championships. This just seemed like something cool to do because Roman Reigns wanted the Usos to unify the tag team titles like he's unified the WWE and Universal Championship. It's just the route that they went to going to scrapping this and creating the 6-man makes absolutely no sense. Because, like I said, Roman Reigns was the person that suggested the Usos go and do a title unification. And that same Roman Reigns is the person that ripped up the contract and suggested a 6-man tag for Backlash. So which one is it, WWE? Which one is it? It's just very confusing. I understand business-wise. I checked yesterday. Tickets for WrestleMania Backlash, there's still a lot available, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're in the area, go out of your way to go there, because they have plenty of tickets and those prices seem to be dropping every single day. I checked again this morning and the price dropped already. So they need.
Where is it? Where's WrestleMania Backlash again?
I forget. I don't care, ladies. I'll be honest. I don't care. I don't know what this company is doing anymore. I don't care for their Providence. It's in
Providence, Rhode Island. Yeah,
I've been to Providence a few
big
times.
Wrestling town, Providence, Rhode Island. I don't know.
It is a big wrestling town. It is a big wrestling town. They enjoy their professional wrestling. Home of former Laker great Lamar Odom. But yes, that's on a different note completely. But they need to sell out the joint. So Roman Reigns has to be on this card, and they didn't want a 2-week build for Roman versus Drew, which is obviously going to be the next challenger for Roman Reigns. So they decided to give us a 6-man tag that probably is better suited for the go-home show, because they had to get Roman on this card. But at least they said, we don't want to give the people a 2-week build, so we're going to just put Roman in a 6-man tag. That probably should be a part of the build-up, and more than likely we are going to get on the build-up to Hell in a Cell. So here we are. Here it is. It's WWE for you.
Now, here's the thing, right? Like, if you could really go down a rabbit hole, right, of why certain things happened, and every single one of them you could come up with a well, yeah, this is WWE's fault, and it's WWE's fault for this, and it's WWE's fault for this. Is all one giant ripple effect, right? So to me, this signifies that they had no plan. They had no idea what plans they want to do. They still haven't decided whether or not they really want to unify the WWE and Universal Championships or just have Roman Reigns still carry 2 titles. To me, this screamed that, okay, yeah, maybe we should go ahead and unify the tag team titles, but then last second we decided, nah, we don't really want to do that. So how are we going to get Roman Reigns on this card? Because we haven't done anything with him for the last several weeks, when we could have been building the Drew McIntyre instead of giving us the exact same match with Sami Zayn and Drew McIntyre for 4 consecutive weeks. Like, if Roman and Drew was the plan, right, and you were worried about ticket sales and everything, you could have set that up 2 weeks ago. You could have started that angle before you taped everything. We didn't need 4 consecutive matches of Sami Zayn running away. Like, that was their entire build up to this. And you could go all the way back to, okay, well, then why does Roman have 2 titles if they weren't going to put these titles on the show? Well, he doesn't have any competitors. Oh, well, why don't they have any competitors? Well, because he's beaten everybody and WWE hasn't built up anybody. It is a constant, endless rabbit hole of WWE booking themselves into a corner to where they are flying by the seat of their pants right now and decided, yeah, screw this big matchup that we had planned that we actually got the audience invested in. Nah, we got to get Roman on this card quick, fast, and in a hurry. Which, by the way, if you needed Roman Reigns on the damn card, why not just go forward with the Shinsuke Nakamura angle that you put on TV 3 damn weeks ago?
That seems like that.
Forgot about that?
That seems like that was done for no reason at all now. I don't know what was the change. I would love to find out what was the change that happened when they had that angle in mind to do on the first SmackDown after WrestleMania, and then it was absolutely zero follow-up.
Queen asking, why isn't Roman on Raw more often? Because Raw has an abundance of challengers that he hasn't beaten. Fair point. There are several there. Obviously, I think Cody Rhodes is still the plan for SummerSlam. At least that's what we are all hoping here at Bleav in Pro Wrestling, that is the option. But clearly they have had Drew McIntyre pinpointed as next. So they don't want to rush that because that's what's going to get them up to SummerSlam. I don't expect that Drew McIntyre is the guy that is going to beat Roman Reigns, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this feud is going to be bad. Is the big UK show, is that after SummerSlam?
Correct.
Ooh, that might put a damper on Cody Rhodes winning at SummerSlam, because I would not be surprised if Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre is actually the match that is, they might carry the entire damn summer, which is going to be interesting because I don't know how you go an entire summer SP3 with Drew McIntyre challenging Roman Reigns and not beating him at least one time. We could be looking at another summer here of AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura. Just hopefully that these two aren't just trading nut shots.
Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to be here on the Bleav in Pro Wrestling podcast talking about it the whole entire way. God help us.
Oh my goodness. It's just like, man, it just all comes down to the lack of planning. You know what WWE treat, and I've said this on Redacted before. WWE treats their own product like they're an episode of The Simpsons, right? Like nothing that happened the week prior actually matters in the grand scheme of things. Oh, the house burnt down last week. No problem. It's back up and everything's ready to go. Oh, Hans Molman got run over by a car and he's dead. Oh, no problem. He'll show back up and get hit in the groin with a football next week. They treat everything like it doesn't matter. And we being idiots will just forget stuff. A lot of fans do forget things, though, which is why they get away with this kind of stuff. I bet you that there are viewers we have right now who forgot about that entire Shinsuke Nakamura angle that happened only 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. And this is what makes that makes it okay for them to release people like they did over the weekend, because they feel like people aren't going to remember that Indy Hartwell is married to Dexter Lumis, or that Wendy Chu was tag team partners with Dakota Kai, like they or that Malcolm Bivens was the real leader of Diamond Mine. That's why they think they can get away with this stuff.
ALW asking, can we talk seriously about Roman's place in history? Non-ring stuff aside, he's not Flair, Hogan, Austin, Rock, Foley, or UT. He is the face of the company, but he is not that good. Sid, your reaction to that?
I'm going to be honest with you. Foley, Flair, Undertaker were never the face of WWE. So in WWE's mind, Roman is on a higher place than him. No, he's not. He's not as far as like mainstream star power, not on the level of any of those guys. Maybe Foley, because they never push Foley to that level. But Roman is kind of in that line with the Hogan, Austin, Rock, Cena, and now it's Roman. He's kind of in that lineage of face of the company.
I have to give Roman kind of like an incomplete, because the one thing that we haven't seen from Roman Reigns is that top level babyface run. Like WWE tried to book him as a major babyface, but he was never over with the audience. So it's kind of hard to compare him to Austin, Rock, or any of those guys, because he's never had that sustained success as a babyface to where he was perpetually over with the audience. He gets his best reactions ever as a heel. So it's going to be very interesting whenever they do pull the trigger on a potential babyface run for Roman, which apparently he got a huge babyface reception in the UK, which was interesting because he was wrestling Drew McIntyre. So whenever they do kind of pull the trigger on that, that's what I think is going to ultimately define whether or not Roman was a success as the quote unquote face of the company. If he can go out there and have like an Austin, Rock, Becky Lynch type babyface run, I think you're going to start thinking of him very, very differently. But I think a lot of people associate him with failure because the company did not get him over as a babyface. It wasn't until they basically unshackled the poor man, got rid of those dumbass contact lenses, and let him just be this fucking cool badass that he is, that people finally started to fall in love with Roman Reigns. The problem is he's running out opponents very, very quickly. They clearly don't have any plans for him right now. And now he's being shoehorned into random tag team matches instead of them giving something compelling like a title unification match like we were supposed to see at Money in the Bank. And no, Andrew, look, this 6-man match does nothing for me as opposed to what we could have seen in 2 separate matches. I would rather take Roman Reigns versus Shinsuke Nakamura and the tag team title unification match over what we're getting here. If you wanted to hold off Drew McIntyre, like, I love Drew. I love watching him perform. Does this card need Drew McIntyre on it? No, it doesn't. You could have had him beat Sami Zayn and then, hey, set something up with him for Roman afterwards. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Get your comments in. We'll answer them throughout the show here on Bleav in Pro Wrestling Live.
It's time to answer the 5 count on the Bleav Podcast Network.
All right, so we had a number of releases on Friday, all of them at the NXT level. And again, it's always a sad day when those kind of things go down. And I like to take a little bit of time to kind of reflect on things, because I tend to be a little bit overly emotional when stuff like this first comes down. And I get, I think a lot of us see red first, and then we say some things, or maybe our attitudes towards certain things aren't what they really are once we have a couple of days to kind of chill and marinate on these things. So wanted to talk about it here with SP3 on Monday instead of doing like a straight up reactionary video the moment that it happened, because I have gotten very, very pissed off before and said things that I don't necessarily mean. But SP3, we did have another round of cuts, 10 superstars let go. To me, there are a number of head scratchers. Some of these make a little bit of sense, I can see from WWE's mind, but there are a lot of head scratchers here. Which one was the biggest one for you?
I said it on Redacted, and I'll say it here. The biggest WWE NXT release that's the biggest head scratcher is Harlan, a.k.a. Parker Boudreaux. He was a guy that fit the mold of what WWE was looking for when they remodeled NXT. They rebranded it NXT 2.0 and remodeled how they were recruiting stars for the Performance Center. They said no more of the independent superstars, the independent influx that we saw in the NXT Black and Gold days when they got guys like Adam Cole, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins, etc. They wanted like people that they can mold, collegiate athletes, former football players. They wanted people like that. That's who Parker Boudreaux was. And
Yes.
they totally just botched it 100% from the very beginning. And I know the excuse that they have given is that he wasn't progressing enough in the ring to their liking up until this point. He's been with the company less than a year. How much time do you not give him a year? You've had people that have been in the performance center for like 5-6 years that you gave a chance to, that are now on the main roster and still aren't that good, and you didn't give this guy an opportunity. This guy that is a collegiate athlete was billed by not just the fans, and you can blame the fans to say, oh, the fans put too much pressure on him, calling him the next Brock Lesnar. No, the guy that's closest to Brock Lesnar called him the next Brock Lesnar,
sure
and
did.
Paul Heyman. This is, everybody saw the star power that he could potentially give us. You know, they didn't even let him be him and show off his grappling skills. They wanted him to be the big spooky dude. They wanted him to be next to Joe Gacy and look intimidating and work a style where he did power moves and just stood there very stiff and stifled. If you're trying to make him into something that he's not, of course he's not going to progress in the ring very well. If you would have just let him and teach him how to be a professional wrestler, maybe he would be successful. So that's why I understand the people that are like, hey, send him to New Japan Pro Wrestling. Send him to Japan and work in the New Japan dojo, or send him to LA dojo and have him work with Shibata, or send him to one of the great trainers. Send him to AEW and don't put him on TV immediately. Have him work with Dustin Rhodes. Have him work with Dean Malenko. And you've seen the difference from someone like Ty Conti, who was in the Performance Center for about 3 or 4 years and never looked that good whenever she was on NXT, and she goes and works with Dustin Rhodes for a few months, and now she's a completely different performer and one of the best female prospects that AEW has. So it's I feel like the biggest head scratcher is Harlan, because it is very much an indictment against the Performance Center if the excuse is he hasn't progressed enough.
So couple of things about what you said there. One, the Performance Center, I've never been. All right. I have had at least one person who is kind of in the know, who has worked with WWE before, who has told us that Performance Center is a bit overrated, shall we say. I do believe that was their correct wording on that one. But I'm wondering how much like one-on-one time that these athletes get, and how much WWE kind of caters their training toward the specific individual, or is this just a giant cookie cutter factory where they're just trying to teach everybody the basics and the motions, and then they're chucking them out on TV, and to whether they sink or swim? Because, you know, you go back to that old adage of, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you're going to think it's stupid as hell, right? But it does other things better. Obviously, fish ain't going to climb no damn tree. Go chuck it in the ocean. It's going to excel, right? All right. So, and I think that's where, you know, Ty Conti working with Dustin Rhodes, he's going to work with her one-on-one, find out what she does well, be able to develop that, and then maybe work on some things and develop a few other things with her. But he's going to put her in the best position to succeed. So I'm wondering how well the Performance Center does with that. I don't know. I'm asking a general question here. All right. I'm just throwing that out there. The other thing with Parker Bordeaux, obviously, is, yes, his presentation, they completely messed that up. They may have rushed him onto television, and a lot of that may have been the hype surrounding him, which, again, the internet didn't do him any favors. It was, oh my God, look at this guy. Look how much he looks like Brock Lesnar. He's this beast, this freak athlete. Well, let's put him on television immediately. But then we don't get that. They give him the generic name of Harlan. They shave his head. They make him dress like Uncle Fester. And then they just have him stand there and look like, you know, stoic like Michael Myers' mask. And it's just like, okay, we're supposed to care about this guy. Why? And they never really gave him a chance to showcase what he does well. Again, fish, climbing a tree. That's basically what they did with Parker Bordeaux. Now, how bad does he have to be at bumping and you know, not picking it up fast enough for them to just cut this guy? I do have a feeling that the new NIL deal between WWE and all of these collegiate athletes is going to make them start cutting the cord quicker on a lot of these people. I think that is going to change, because they are going to be getting a fresh influx of high-profile college athletes every single year now that they're going to be signing to these NIL deals. So maybe they see a guy like Parker and go, all right, he ain't progressing fast enough. He's not getting it to where we feel comfortable enough with him anymore. back in the days when we would have pulled him off TV and kind of worked with him a little bit more, maybe brought him back a year later as a different character. Now they feel like they can cut bait with him because they're going to have so many more athletes coming in. Just playing devil's advocate, I could see that. But considering the pub that this guy has, the look that this guy has, he is a prototypical, this is what WWE looks for. And the fact they only gave him 1 year, I got to know how bad this dude was. Because if that, you got to be like me level bad, right? Like to cut this guy. It would not be easy to cut a guy of my stature if I sucked in the ring, which I did, which is why I only had 2 matches in my entire life. All right. And they were basic AF. It wasn't for me. I had fun though, but I wasn't trying out for WWE. So it's really interesting. I would love to know what exactly it was that just wasn't clicking and whether or not it was just the environment that he was in and whether or not he would thrive. He's young enough. He might get another chance to go out there and land someplace else, get him some more training under his belt and come back. When you look at some of these other releases, you know, to me, the least surprising, honestly, was probably Dakota Kai and maybe somebody like Malcolm Bivens, just because they were so clearly unhappy with their roles in NXT, and they had made it abundantly clear that they weren't going to re-sign anyway, which is why them being released, by the way, I'm not condoning that. I'm just saying them being released isn't a shocker to me because it's clear WWE didn't have plans for them and they wanted out anyway. Now, WWE booking them as such and looking at somebody like Dakota Kai and not saying, we don't have anything to do for her on the main roster, we don't need her. That's a completely different argument and a completely different topic of conversation. And part of me is looking at that going, okay, it's concerning, which is something we'll come up with here in a minute. But yeah, you look at everybody else. I think maybe Dexter Lumis would have to be the other one that was really, really shocking to me because he was so heavily featured on TV for the last several months. I mean, this guy was part of their whole TMZ angle that got them on. I mean, this was the horny time hour between, Dexter and Duke and Persia and Indy, and the fact that Persia is also now been let go. So you've eliminated half of this group that has been a mainstay on your roster, like one of the top non-title storylines. You just formed a tag team with Dexter and Duke Hudson, and this program has been progressing, and now all of a sudden, poor Duke Hudson, who has gone from poker player now to obsessed boyfriend and sex symbol, is now floating aimlessly, and everything that Indy Hartwell has been involved with in NXT is now gone. And now it's like, okay, what do we do now? And I know there are reports from Sean Rossap that some NXT producers are highly pissed off that those two were let go because they have been so heavily featured in NXT storylines. So I think just the fact that those two were so ingrained into NXT 2.0, that to me makes that one almost as shocking. But still, it's Parker Boudreaux. The fact that they didn't give him longer than a year? Longer than a year? Man. Sometimes it just doesn't click, though. So we'll see if he sticks around. He's able to keep things going, but still, yeah, a lot of very head scratching, and we do wish everybody the best. And again, Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer, says they're not done. There's another round that is coming. He said specifically NXT, so there could be more NXT superstars who are getting let go. But I have a feeling people like Malcolm Bivens, SP3, and Dakota Kai, I think they're going to be just fine down the road.
It's a different wrestling landscape. Stokely Hathaway, it would be money in AEW. I can think of 10 or 15 different people that really would need him. Put him with two guys like Top Flight. They would go to the moon. Put him with 2 guys like Private Party who he could play off of. That would be great. Swerve and Keith Lee don't need him, but just the act all together would be great. And of course, like I said on Redacted, I said on True Hill Heat this week, you Smart Mark Sterling, you could deal with your Tony Nese's. You could be the lawyer for MJF. Jade Cargill been getting annoyed with you anyway. Put Stokely Hathaway with Jade Cargill and the baddies. Money.
Couldn't agree anymore. If you guys have not seen the interview that Athena, aka Ember Moon, did with Chris Van Vliet, I highly suggest that you check it out. It was very heartbreaking and very concerning, SP3, watching that interview. And I haven't gotten to see all of it yet, but I have seen a couple of things, a couple of different clips. I've read a lot of the quotes off of this, and my goodness, just accounts of her, sitting through 2 hours of meetings where they're telling all these young superstars that they need to start dressing like Mandy Rose and got to sex it up and this, that, and the other thing, or talking about the safety, the over safety regulations for women's wrestlers in WWE, how she had to basically fight to do an eclipse off of a ladder in a ladder match. Like some of these things that there's a lot to dive into with this, based off of her release. Her going into detail about how she did every single thing that WWE asked her to do and was constantly given, promises of we're working on this, we're working on that. And then the second that Triple H had to go away, and all of that just seemingly melted down to nothing, to where they basically told her, hey, you want to come coach some of these young kids? And that's when she was finally like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. She was a consummate professional and consummate team player for WWE, helping put anybody over, going on a loser streak, doing whatever they wanted her to do. And then at the end of the day, they chewed her up and spat her out and said, we ain't got nothing for you. And then ultimately released her. It sucks. And frankly, one of the things that I was always curious about, I did get the answer. I just assumed that maybe she didn't want to go back up to the main roster after everything that had happened and how she got hurt. And maybe that's why she didn't go up with Shotzi when that was the tag team. And then they bring up Shotzi and put her with Tegan Nox, and we saw that went absolutely nowhere. But the fact that she was blindsided and basically said, I don't know why they didn't take me with Shotzi, makes it even more head scratch that she wanted to be back up on the main roster. And that was the plan of what she was told. There's a lot of concerning angles to take on this. Scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you after hearing some of these accounts from Athena on her WWE release?
I'm not really concerned, so I would say it's like a 2 or a 3, because everything she said was not that surprising for me. I don't know about other people, but this is what we have grown accustomed to learning about WWE. It's I mean, it's not very surprising to me. It's not very concerning to me. This is the direction that you could see on NXT 2.0 every single week, that they want to sexualize the women. You've already heard the reports about Bruce Pritchard and John Laurinaitis having more hand in what's going on in NXT 2.0, and you can see on the product itself that it's reverting back to where we were in the Divas era. And this is something that Johnny Ace is a big fan of. He was a big fan of the scantily clad women and the presentation of the divas. So it's not that surprising to me. It's not that concerning for me, but I feel for Athena herself that she had to deal with that. And I'm glad that she got out, because she was so unhappy, and being in any type of job when you're so unhappy is not healthy for you mentally. It's not healthy for you emotionally. It's not, sometimes not even healthy for you physically. So I'm glad that she got out. I'm glad that she was able to express herself. Chris Van Vliet does such a great job with his interviews. Yep. Go out of your way to watch it and really see the emotions behind these words that she was able to say. But all of this just made a whole bunch of sense when she was saying everything. It did not feel to me like she didn't want to go up to the main roster. It felt like they just chose Shotzi and Tegan to go up and not her. I don't know. I don't know why you thought she didn't want to go back up. I think that anybody would want to go back up, because you're gonna get paid more money to go back up on the main roster. Well, that's why all the people
but with her being on the main roster and then going back down, I don't know if she was still getting that full-time main roster pay, even though she was in NXT.
Anyone, you should. This is why I always say, where people that be like, oh, I want this person to go back to NXT. I want that person to go back to NXT. No, you want them to still get their money. I want people to get paid. I'm all about people getting paid, because they put their body on the line for our entertainment. I want them to get their money. There's only been one example of a person who got main roster money to be on NXT, and that was Finn Balor. And that worked out great for him, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so moving on, I want people to get their money. And I know if Ember was going to get more money and they had a plan for her on the main roster, she would want to be up there. Anybody would want to be up there. I'm glad that Ciampa went up, because he's getting his money too. As long as they can get their money for as any amount of time as WWE is willing to give to them, I'm happy for the performer.
To answer the question, you say you're not concerned because you're not surprised. I'm not surprised either, but I'm still highly concerned because it definitely seems like WWE is trying to turn the clock back when we have come so damn far in women's wrestling, where you don't need to over-sexualize them to draw an audience, to get them over. The fact that you have somebody like Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai, and they don't fit your bombshell idolized this list, whatever you want to call it. They don't fit the description of the character of somebody that they want to use in NXT, like Toxic Attraction. That is something that is concerning to me. The fact that they are constantly trying to bring in 19, 20, and 21-year-olds while letting Taya Valkyrie walk because she's too old, that concerns me. All right, that they're not valuing the talent of these ladies and rather looking at talent in a different way, if you know what I'm saying. It's like they're trying to turn the clock back. And I'm not like talking bad about the Divas era because they were all really, really talented. But we've come so far in professional women's wrestling to where they can main event WrestleMania, where you have, would they ever sit down, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Bayley, and Sasha Banks, and say, hey, we want you to dress more sexualized and look like Mandy Rose? Absolutely freaking not. They would not do that to those women. So you know what? Stop trying to paint your next generation with a broad brush. If they want to dress sexy, if that's part of their character, that's fine. That's great. Carmella has made a great living doing that sexy character. That fits her. That's what she does. But she's also told me before that she wants to be more than just a sex figure on TV. We've come a long way. It feels like they're trying to turn the clock back, and that's what I have a big issue with, which is why I'm going to say about a 7 or an 8.5. That being said, one of the women that excelled during the Divas era, was Maria Kanellis-Bennett, who I had the pleasure of talking with this past week. That interview is available now on the Bleav in Pro Wrestling podcast YouTube channel. She has started up her new promotion, Women's Wrestling Army, WWA, had a successful opening up this past weekend. And in talking with Maria, right, she has grand goals for this. All right. She is already going from A to triple Z, right? Like she wants to do everything now. And she's had to say that Bobby Cruz has had to like pull her back saying, no, look, we can't book 100 people for this weekend. Stop. What are you doing? We got to take this baby steps at a time. But one of her like ultimate goals, which I thought was really, really cool, was to do a tournament of champions with women's champions from like every brand across the globe. Like to be able to be entered into the tournament, you have to be a women's champion. And yes, she wants them from all women's promotions, including WWE. That would be really, really hard to pull off. But as she noted, we never thought we'd see the Impact Women's Champion, Knockouts Women's Champion in the Royal Rumble, and we saw that. So who knows where things would go. The intriguing part to me, SP3, and I don't even know if I have an answer for this. How do you book something like that? And this is the question I have for Forbidden Door, because most companies that do allow people to go out and do indie events, if their talent's on television, they want to put their talents over. They don't want to see, AEW talent losing at an indie show somewhere. They don't want to see that. And I've had people tell me that that's how that has worked before. It's very interesting. And we might get a taste about this with a Forbidden Door about how certain situations are booked like this. But when you get women's champions from AEW, WWE, Shimmer, any of these, WoW, when you get all these different women's champions in there, how do you even start to think about booking something like that?
It would be very interesting to do this type of tournament of champions, but the fact that they're champions, that's the issue, because this is something that WWE gets a lot of complaints for, how they beat their champions on TV to set up title matches. So no one wants to see the champion lose. So I would do something like a tournament of the promotions of the King of the Indies tournament was a great one that sparked up like different promotions like Ring of Honor and stuff like that. And that had like the best independent stars from all over the world come together. So I would like something like that from the best former champions of like AEW. If it's like the women's division, it would be people like Dr. Britt Baker TMT and Hikaru Shida and Serena Deeb, who's the former NWA Women's World Champion, and Nyla Rose. And, you know, if you go to Impact Wrestling, it'd be someone like a Deonna Purrazzo, who's won Women's Championship gold everywhere pretty much at this point. ROH, Impact Wrestling, AAA. You have your Rosemary, you got your Havoc, you got your Taya Valkyries over there. You could go to, you know, NWA, where, you know, Mickie James is working NWA as well as Impact Wrestling. You got your Chelsea Green over there as well. Bring them in. So that's what I would do. You have to be a former champion to enter the tournament. I wouldn't do the champions themselves, because I, like many that complain about these things, don't like to see champions lose too often in non-title situations. So that's how I would make it work, is that you have to be a former champion to enter it. And that's how I would do something like that, which is a great idea by Maria. And you did a great job with that interview.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate all the kind words in the chat as well. Yeah, man, I think a lot of ego would play into something like this, which might make it very, very difficult to pull off. And Maria knows how difficult something like this would pull off. And I don't just mean egos of the talent. I do mean the egos of the company as well, because there is no way, let's just say that Becky Lynch was the Raw Women's Champion. There is no way that WWE would let her go over there. And honestly, kind of like what I talked about with Athena, where they were very protective of her, just saying, don't get hurt and don't do this and that in an actual ladder match for that company. Them trying to loan out Becky Lynch, oh my gosh, the insurance alone on something like that could bankrupt the damn event, right? Like them saying, all right, you can go over there, but you can do like the basic chain wrestling, put in the hit somebody with the manhandle slam, and that's it, right? Or you could put them in the disarmor, and that's it. All right, 5 minutes, no more. You're in, you're out, you win, and you got to win the whole damn thing. I can see WWE doing something like that because they have to come out on top. But the idea of it is great. And it, you know, romanticizes all of these like dream matches that we could see. Dr. Britt Baker versus Becky Lynch. Could you imagine the promo exchange we could get between those two? Or Sasha Banks and, you know, Thunder Rosa. All right, like all of these different kind of matchups that we could get in a tournament like that makes it worth trying to put on. And it's going to be very interesting to see if Maria can get some kind of a semblance of that going. But I really, 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 really doubt that WWE would take part in something like that. SP3, we've talked about this on Redacted before, about how AEW and Tony Khan specifically has really tried to put a lot into Rampage in recent weeks, which we appreciate because the show has been a banger, especially after or right before a lot of really just SmackDowns. All right, since WrestleMania, SmackDown has been very and I think that's the best and kindest way I can describe it. Nothing to do with the talent, 100% with the creative direction of it. But apparently, reportedly, according to Sean Ross at Fightful Select, there were some concerns about matches being cut, certain things being cut from the final taped interview or taped program, the one that was shown on television. Frustrations backstage over a lot of time being cut from Eddie Kingston's match, specifically this past Friday. And now all of a sudden you turn around and it's time is jumping all over the place. And this week we have a special 5:30 Eastern Standard start time for Rampage, which means we're going to have a full hour and a half break in between Rampage and SmackDown this week. That's going to be hard for a lot of people to watch. All right. Even me over here on the West Coast, which is all I care about. I'm kidding, but seriously. So I'll ask you, is AEW Rampage too short and now too early, or is AEW simply trying to cram too much into that hour?
I think they're trying to cram too much into that hour, and I say the same thing on AE Ramble and True Hell Heat about AEW Dynamite a lot. AEW Dynamite a lot cram too much, where, you know, Excalibur has to do the auctioneer voice and go through the cards of 3 different shows in about under a minute. It's kind of crazy sometimes. So I think they're cramming a little bit too much into that hour. I miss the Rampage days where it was 3 matches, a couple of promos, and everything had time to breathe. If you go back to like the original episode of Rampage, which I still feel is the benchmark of Rampage, where you had a great 20-minute opener with Christian Cage and Kenny Kenny Omega. You had a quick squash match with Miro defeating Fuego del Sol. You followed by that, you had Fuego getting his contract from Sammy Guevara, which was a great moment. And then you had a 10-15 minute main event with Dr. Britt Baker beating Red Velvet in her hometown of Pittsburgh. That's still the best episode of Rampage to me because everything was able to breathe. And I feel like there's no room to breathe anymore. And this conversation comes up is because the Eddie Kingston versus Daniel Garcia match was a really good 11-minute match. But if it got its full amount of time, which reportedly it was 22 minutes long, so we cut half of it, we would have been saying that it was one of the best TV matches of the year. So I just feel they need to let things breathe and not cram too much into that 1 hour. Or maybe it is too short and they need to think about asking, Warner for an extra hour. But with the things that are going on business-wise with that situation, that's not something you want to ask. You want to do the best with what you have. And I don't think this time is too early. It's great for me. It's in the UK right now. That's a 10:30 p.m. start time instead of a 3 a.m. start time that it usually starts at. So I'd rather it be this early. And this is to open people's eyes why it's a great thing that Dynamite was moved to TBS, because they would have to be dealing with these time changes that Rampage has to deal with if they were still on TNT.
Yeah. Man, it would be, if they wanted an extra hour, I think like all they could actually honestly do is probably go 8 to 10 and go head to head with SmackDown, which would be very, very, very interesting to see how that would unfold. AEW on TNT versus WWE on Fox, as opposed to NXT on the USA Network. SmackDown on Fox is consistently the most watched television show every week, which is a damn shame. And I mean that in pro wrestling, obviously. It is a damn shame that that's the most watched show right now because it's just not very good television on a week in and week out basis. Some good things sprinkled in here and there, great performances, but creatively it is floundering right now. Could definitely use something, and not taking away the most compelling match you have on the entire WrestleMania Backlash card and giving us a 6-man tag. But anyway, I think I got to agree. They're cramming too much of it in here. And look, I would rather you cut a match short than have to edit it down, right? Don't adapt the philosophy of, well, this is taped, so we can do this 20-minute match for the live crowd, and then we'll trim it down to 11. No, don't book a 22-minute match if you have 4 matches on an hour show. Don't do it. I'm sorry, that's not the time to do it. There's a time and a place for everything. Don't do it. I will say, if AEW had a streaming deal or something like that, if you're going to have that, go ahead and tape the whole match and then broadcast the whole match someplace else. Put the whole 22-minute match on YouTube. Put the whole 22-minute match, just, AEW Untimed or Unhinged or Rampage, whatever you want to call it or title it. You could put that out on the streaming service as, hey, here's the entire 90-minute episode, and you could get more people to tune into your streaming service if you had that deal. If and when they have that deal, that's something you could do. But right now, I think you're trying to cram 10 pounds of crap into a 5-pound sack, and it ain't working too well. When poor Excalibur has to do 2 minutes worth of promos in 30 seconds and isn't allowed to take a damn breath. You want to talk about not letting things breathe? Poor Excalibur, anytime he's got to do a promo, can't breathe. He's talking faster than I just did, cramming all that stuff out there. People missed the FTR announcement because he was talking so damn fast. It's too much. It's too much. They need to scale it down. You can still put good shit in there. Just don't try to give us too much of that. There's no reason why you couldn't have done the Hook and Danhausen thing on Dynamite. No reason you couldn't have done that, even though that was the best thing, and I'm more overly excited for Hookhausen than I think anything in all of professional wrestling right now. Last but not least, SP3. This one is directed specifically to you. You working and getting back in the ring now that you've been inducted into the Bullet Club, or what? What's going on here?
I'm not getting back into the ring, ladies and gentlemen, but I am very happy. I am the spokesperson of podcasts and YouTube of the Bullet Club. I am officially a member. Early for me in the morning at like 6 a.m. in the morning. My daughter woke up, had to give her a bottle. So I decided, I was like racking my brain because some people were confused after New Japan Pro Wrestling, Wrestling Duntaku yesterday morning. Great show that was very newsworthy because Switchblade Jay White returned to Japan and we saw a reunited Bullet Club. We saw the Good Brothers, Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows, back in Japan for the first time in over 6 years. You saw Taiji Ishimori win the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. Chase Owens and Bad Luck Fale win the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team titles. And you saw Juice Robinson turn heel after weeks of interviews where he said that he was going to be done with wrestling after his contract was done with New Japan. And this is why I say wrestlers are always working. They're always working. So you got to take it with a pinch of salt when they say things. He turns heel. He reveals himself as the newest member of the Bullet Club, lays out Hiroshi Tanahashi, and takes the United States Championship. One of the followers, I see a couple of followers from True Hill Heat, like Alan Weinstein, like You My Boy Blue, like Fifth Generation Carney, and the Negro Bug Nick Jackson's one of our great supporters of True Hill Heat. And he got me thinking because he put on the comments when I posted the story on the True Hill Heat's Facebook page. He was like, it confuses him why Juice would join the Bullet Club, or he looked out of place. He even went as far as to say it's worse than Evil joining the Bullet Club. I was like, no, you're bugging. So I had to put a whole explanation, a whole thread of how it makes sense because Juice and Jay White, they came up together as young lions in the New Japan dojo. And I just broke down the whole path that they took, with Juice being a good guy, going to Hontai, being a protege of Hiroshi Tanahashi, while Switchblade Jay White set up his path and his plot to infiltrate and become the leader of the Bullet Club. And his whole plot since they both left the Japan at the same time last year, and how he's been basically setting up for Bullet Club to become the stable in New Japan Pro Wrestling again upon his return, which he did on the 9th anniversary of the Bullet Club at Wrestling Duntaku. And then I wake up after a few hours of sleep because my daughter and son also woke up again. I woke up and I saw that Switchblade Jay White retweeted my thread. And I was just like, whoa, okay. So I put up on my regular page, I was like, hey, I think at this point I should be a member of the Bullet Club. My podcast was on Bullet Club Block Party back in 2019. I've interviewed Tama Tonga and Chase Owens and Bad Luck Fale when Tama Tonga was a part of the Bullet Club. And I've been able to interview the Good Brothers. So I was like, I should be a member, an honorary member at this point. And Switchblade Jay White just replied with a simple, too sweet. So I am now Bullet Club affiliated. I am now an affiliate of the Bullet Club. So ladies and gentlemen, any Bullet Club questions, you can come to me.
Will we get David Finlay versus Juice? SALW.
Alan Weinstein, more than likely, but that's if and when David Finlay returns to Japan. I think that happens. But if Juice decides he's going to be Bullet Club, wins the United States Championship from Hiroshi Tanahashi, and brings that title to New Japan Strong, you might get it sooner rather than later in the United States. But I'm Bullet Club, and that means I'm Bullet Club for life.
I was very happy for you this morning because you have long touted the history and the lineage of the Bullet Club as the most or the best long-term story that there is in professional wrestling today. And you are a Bullet Club historian to its core. And I was very happy to see that for you this morning. So I decided to carve out some time and let you celebrate a little bit. Screw it. Why not? We appreciate everybody who joined us here today. Do not forget, like, share, subscribe this link, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Look out on my Twitter page tomorrow. All right. You will get all the details as we're giving away 2 tickets to Money in the Bank in Las Vegas this summer. No travel, no hotel, none of that. You get yourself to Vegas. We'll get you in the show. That's the deal. Check out my Twitter page tomorrow. I'll tweet out the link, everything. Also tomorrow, of course, 7 a.m., myself and Jeremy Bennett this week will be recapping what we see on Monday Night Raw. And then SP3 and myself will be back for our AEW recap on Thursday morning. And we have our WrestleMania Backlash preview show that's going to be coming out. I may have another interview that's dropping this week. So much going on here on Bleav in Pro Wrestling. So that just means you need to do one thing, SP3. You got to subscribe. We are closing in on 300 subscribers, getting even closer to monetization. Guys, we had 137% growth last month. That is insane. thank you so much for being a part of that. We really appreciate it. And SP3, I'll talk to you Wednesday evening, and then we'll drop that episode Thursday morning. How's that sound to you?
Sounds good to me, everyone. I appreciate you all for watching. This was a great live show, and we'll see you next time.
We'll also be live next Monday as well. I'm making an executive decision because I got a lot to do, and it's a late pay-per-view. Like, yeah, let's just do it live, and we'll talk about WrestleMania Backlash, this great show that we're going to get, WrestleMania Backlash, with this big card with a lot of stakes on it. Talk to you guys tomorrow at 7. The Bleav in Pro Wrestling Podcast live edition brought to you by BetOnline.